We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
I may not be a millionaire. I may not have a brand new Frigidaire. My clothes ain't all fancy, and my car ain't brand new. But there is joy in my house. I've got joy in my house. There is
Welcome,
joy.
everybody, to Joy in My House, an inspirational reality radio show with a touch of recovery. A show where nothing is left unsaid.
And no one is insignificant who says it.
I'm joined here with my co host, Lolita Robinson.
Hi, Hoel, how are you?
Good, how are you doing today?
Good to see you as always.
We have a great show for you today, ladies and gentlemen. If you're out there viewing or listening, remember that you can view us also through youtube.tv/LA Talk Live through your iPad or your mobile devices. You can also follow us on twitter.com/join my house, or you can just visit us directly at latalklive.com. We have an amazing show today. We have in the studio line Zoro, all the way from Tennessee, Nashville, who will be talking about today his new book, The Big Gig, and talking about his amazing journey.
He's had an amazing journey.
His amazing journey.
Yeah, he's
He's-
an amazing man, too.
He's drummed. He's one of the most famous drummers in the world.
Mhm.
Drummed with Lenny Kravitz, New Edition, just immense amount of people, countless amount of accolades. So he's
Yes,
going to be in
yes.
the studio after our first intermission. But I did want to recap last week's show. We had an amazing show last
Wasn't
week
it? Wasn't
with
it?
Debbie
Yeah.
from Project Cuddle.
Yeah, we
What
did.
an amazing story.
And it was great how you tied in how you met the guy who did the pictures for you and how you met Debbie.
Yes, through
You're great at
Miguel
networking.
Polo.
People don't know that. I'm telling you, this man here is a real go-getter.
Thank you.
You're very personable.
But the truth is, I think God places people
Mhm.
in your life to direct you somewhere, and if you're receptive to it, if you're humble and you're surrendered to Him,
Mhm.
you're able to see it. I think sometimes when you're in the craziness of life, you're not able to see those doors that are
That's
opening.
right. That's right.
So I think God has just been placing everybody kind
And
of
you have more talents than
strategically.
you realize, I bet. Did you think you'd ever? I've got to tell you, people, every day before these shows, he goes, "What did you get me into?"
Well, I'm not very comfortable being here at this spot. I'm always like being in the background.
I
Like
know,
I like
but
working
you're
with you
doing it.
and promoting you.
Uh-huh.
That seems a little easier. So for performers out there, if you're a performer, a singer, an actor, I commend you. I think it's very difficult to put yourself out there because you're judged.
But
You're
this is harder. This is live. I mean, you
That's
can't
true.
see. We can perform and sit down and take cameras off. But this here is live, and to
This
be
is
thrown
live.
into here, I just need to commend you too. That you're doing
Thank you,
a
Lorena.
really wonderful
Thank you.
job, and I'm having
Well, I
fun.
appreciate you. I think we have this great rapport, you and
We
me,
do,
and we
we
go
do.
back and forth. And our guests and have just been exciting shows. People that that I speak to now that have been watching the show, they're like, "Wow,
Mhm.
you guys have such great chemistry, and you
It's
guys are able to
great.
communicate your ideas."
Well, you did
It's
well
just
with
live.
Debbie too. Getting back to her,
Yeah, Debbie was amazing. Project Cuddles. I mean, she was on Oprah. She was on the Ricky Lake show and recently on the Talk. And
Mhm.
she's. I think I just saw a Facebook update for her on projectcuddles.org. Baby number 708.
Oh, congratulations,
Yeah,
Debbie.
congratulations, Debbie.
Congratulations. I'm trying to scrape up that $95 so I can go.
Go to her fundraiser. She is having a fundraiser February, I believe, 8th, February 8th, February 9th.
Well, we get the
Look
right
at her,
date. Yeah,
yeah,
look
look
on
at
the,
her look at her Facebook
Right.
page, Facebook.com/projectcuddles.org. And you find out all the information. John Stamos is her spokesperson.
Yeah, that's
who's
quite a
doing it,
yeah. That was interesting, that story on how she got to know the mother first, and it's really interesting, the whole concept of rescuing these children. It's I didn't get a chance to tell her, but that's the God's heart are His babies. Really, we
Yeah.
forget that, and
And you really have to have a big heart for that.
You do.
You really have to be really
you
open.
really do. You really do. So I really enjoyed having her, but I'm looking so forward to the show.
I am looking
today.
forward to the show. Once again, Debbie Magginson from Project Cuddles, please visit her foundation. You can donate just your time, finances, or just open your heart to helping her in developing and promoting her her charity. They have a great foundation, great event coming up in February. You're gonna want to go out and support that. But I do want to get back to our show today. Zoro the drummer is here, and he is going to be talking about his book, The Big Gig. Now, if you haven't read this book, don't have this book, you have to go out and get it. It's a great inspirational book. It's a great motivating book. I mean, the passages that are here,
I can't believe the research he did. Well, we have to ask him. I can't wait. I couldn't believe all the research. This man has done, I think he said it was a 30-year adventure. So, but I don't want to steal his thunder. We want him to tell us.
But I love this. The Big Gig, a blueprint for success. You will be inspired beyond your imagination. I mean, it really does. So we're going to go to a quick commercial break right now. And when we come back, you're going to be able to call in. And if you have any questions or comments for Zoro, you can tweet us directly at twitter.com/joinmyhouse. You can find us on Facebook /joinmyhouse. Or you can call the studio line at 323-247-7443 for any questions or comments for Zoro. And we'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Joy in Our House.
Hi, this is Nick Cordelai Corte, inviting you to join me Sundays at 10 a.m. right here on LA Talk Live for our all-new show, People Are Talking. Join us as we offer you a weekly dose of fresh perspectives with in-studio guests, hot topics in the world of politics and pop culture, and the voices of everyday people impacted by the political issues coming to a ballot box near you. So don't forget to tune in to People Are Talking exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, watch us on Ustream.tv, or even catch us under the Radio Flags app under ILATK. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
My clothes ain't all fancy, and my car ain't brand new, but there is joy in my house.
Hello, I'm Joel Ramirez.
And I'm Lolita Robinson Coppage, and welcome to Joy in My House
on latalklive.com. Inspirational radio
with a touch of recovery.
A reality show where nothing is left unsaid
and no one is insignificant who says it.
Exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV.
Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Welcome back to Joy in My House, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joel Ramirez, and I am the host of this inspirational reality radio show. I'm joined here by my co-host, Lolita Robinson.
And it's a pleasure to be here as always. And hello, Van. Good to see you, our producer.
Yeah, hello.
Well, we have a great guest here from Nashville, Tennessee. If you don't know who he is, you need to know. You've probably heard his music played all over the world. We have in our studio line, Zoro the drummer. Zoro, how are you doing today?
Great. How you guys doing? How's LA?
I love it. Well, our weather's a little gloomy, but
yes, it is. Hey, Zoro.
How you doing?
Now, I was introduced to Zoro through Lolita and her mother Beverly in the beginning stages of my management company. When I started developing my management company, I was looking for a mentor and somebody to inspire me or to kind of teach me the ropes. And Lolita said, I know this great, fascinating man.
Very much so.
You're gonna want to talk to him. And she gave me his book called The Big Gig that we'll be talking about and promoting today, and gave me his number. Gave him a couple calls. He actually took the time to talk to me one day for about an hour and just kind of told me that the things I needed, the steps I needed to make to develop my company and to develop myself even as a man of God, which I thought was very inspiring. And soon enough, I talked to Lolita, and then, I know that your son Joe Joe's a friend of Zoro. He follows him on his Facebook and is
Yeah.
a fan of him.
See, you go back with our family for a long time.
I go back to your family from the very beginning of time.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You know, Sam
In
Beverly Hills
fact, when God
High.
created the world, we were right there with him. And
That's right. That's right. Well, I'd like to hear what happened between you and Joel, how you two started hooking up, what you told him.
Well, we just started kind of talking, and there was a couple of things that I wanted to do, and Zoro said, well, I'm out here in Tennessee, these are the things you need to do. But then the show came about, got presented to us, and we jumped on board with this show, Joy in My House. And sure enough, one of the first people I thought that needs to be on the show was Zoro.
Okay.
So we're very happy to have you on the show, Zoro. How's the weather out there in Nashville?
oh, it's been beautiful. It feels like I'm living in California. It still really hasn't winter weather hasn't hit. It's just been a gorgeous, gorgeous fall. I mean, I miss LA because that's where I'm from, but I'm
Right.
enjoying the different seasons out here in Tennessee. I'm enjoying the fall and the spring. They're very distinct and very beautiful. But no, it's great. But LA is my roots.
It is your roots. And you know what? You're lucky now. I think Nashville is going to boom with that new series, which I love. The economy is probably going to pick up there.
Yeah. No, it is getting kind of a little. I'm probably going to make a bunch of people move here, like any of those movies or TV series do.
That's right. Well, start drumming, dude. Keep going.
And we had a good friend of yours, Osama Afifi, on the week before last, and he wanted to say hello and that he'd be listening into this show. How do you know Osama? How do you guys go way back, you and Osama?
I go back with Osama and Lolita and her mother back to 1981, and I met Osama at he was attending Beverly Hills High School at the time, and I met him at that time, and we were both 16, 17, 18 years old, and we instantly hit it off, and Osama became one of my best friends and a strong advocate for me in the LA musician scene. And we just both were passionate musicians that love music. We spent a lot of time practicing together. We spent a lot of time dreaming together and hanging out. And I remember even funny things like we would go to the grocery store and we'd buy a bag of Famous Amos chocolate chip cookies. And then we would divide them exactly in half. We would count.
That is funny.
It'd be like, 50 cookies. Okay, 25 for you, 25 for me.
That's funny.
One of the funniest things ever. Here we are, 17 years old, dividing cookies exactly in half.
And your mother fed us pretty well too. Remember all those garage practices in your garage?
Oh yeah, did a lot of practicing, and at Osama's house, at my house, and we did a million different local gigs in the LA area, from
Well, it seems like
bar mitzvahs, parties, playing in the back of trucks. I mean, you name it, we did.
Well, it sounds like it really paid off, because Osama was here speaking about the longevity in the music industry, and what it takes to have long-term success, as opposed to some people who have these one-hit wonders or these short-term successes in the industry, because it is such a difficult industry. So it looks like those dividing of the chocolate chips and those practices paid off.
The dividing the chocolate chips is like counting your money when you get paid.
There you go.
It's accounting. It's accounting 101, childlike accounting.
Wow.
Make
People
sure
don't know.
you get what you have coming.
Well, I'm very excited to have you on the show.
This is gonna be a fun one. I tell you, this man has got.
You're my headliner for this month of December.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you couldn't do better.
Oh, I'm not. I think I did great.
Yeah.
You've fallen on rough times. I'm the headliner. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I had a chance to really look at, after I read your book, I got a chance to go through your Facebook, and you really have done quite a bit in your career, let alone your life. I've really been inspired by what you've done and how far you've come, and to where you are today. A lot of people said, oh, I've done so much here, I've done this, but where they are in life, they're very unhappy. But what I see in you is you have this peace about you, have this joy about you. Obviously, the premise of the show is Joy in My House, so I found you very appropriate for the show. But I did want to start off by asking you, let's talk about a little bit about your history, your biography, and your family of origin. Zoro, why don't you start? Where did you grow up, and where did you learn how to drum, and how did that come about?
Well, I grew up, I was born in Los Angeles in 1962. I grew up in LA in the formative years of my life, and I was raised by my mother, Her name was Maria. She was a single mother, and she had raised 7 children on her own. So we lived in L.A., and we grew up in the South Central L.A. area. And I grew up, as a child of the 60s, around a lot of great music on the radio. And I always had an interest in rhythm and drums, even though I didn't get a chance to really play it till I was older. First concert I ever attended when I was 7 years old was Diana Ross and the Supremes and the Temptations in concert when they were red hot. They're the biggest thing in the 60s. So I went to see them, and it kind of left an indelible mark on me. And when I was 10 years old, my mother was from Mexico City, so she was Mexican, and she spoke fluent Spanish and fluent English, and was always very much in love with music and the arts. She was a real passionate woman, a real gregarious woman, and very enthusiastic and motivational too. So I picked up a lot of things from her, just being her son. But one was just this incredible passion for music. Then she raised me on really great music, everything from classical music to mariachi music to all the great singers, Tony Bennett, Frank Sinatra, all that kind of stuff. So it was a diverse listening experience. And then when I was 10 years old, for Christmas, she got me a $10 drum set from the Sears catalog. It was a Mickey Mouse drum set. Literally, Mickey Mouse is on the cover of the toy drum.
Wow.
And it's really cool though, because I'm looking at it here in my office, and Goofy's playing the bass.
You still have it?
I still have it. Minnie's playing the guitar.
Oh my
and
gosh.
It's a full rock and roll band of Disney characters. I mean, these cats are like the Beatles, and Donald Duck's playing some drums. So,
They're probably worth a lot, my man.
With that.
Well, listen, when you were talking about doing the concerts and stuff, Joel had to go get some water. He'll be right back. Who took you to the concerts? Was it your mother or who?
Actually, it was a very kind woman by the name of Bertha, who had befriended my mother, and she realized that my mother was a single woman trying to raise 7 kids. And, compared to us, Bertha must have had some money, because she picked us up in a Cadillac and bought the tickets for the concert just to kind of bless my mother, and took, the youngest, the four or five of us to the concert, piled us up in the car, and we went to the Long Beach, one of those Long Beach municipal auditoriums or something, and we went and saw the Temptations and Supremes, and it was like a mesmerizing experience. And I had grown up with all of the great soul music of the 60s and stuff, but I remember, out on the streets in Compton, I remember using Folgers coffee cans and oatmeal, those almond roca cans, and kind of setting up a makeshift little drum set where I just would play with my hands, and I would play to the radio, the transistor radio, and I would put on songs like Grazing in the Grass and just whatever the soul songs of the day were on, and I just kind of beat along with the bongos. So that rhythm was always in me. And then at 10, she got me that drum set, and I destroyed it the first day because it was making paper heads. It was not a real drum set. It was really like a toy.
Yeah, but still, it
ignited a dream,
It sure did. That she had faith in you, and also Bertha, who didn't know that by taking you to these concerts and stuff, she was speaking into your life in a way. That's really cool. Did you know you would be successful was that always your goal, to be a professional percussionist or drummer?
I think I can sum up my life in a quote by Mark Twain that's in my book. In the Big Gig book, there's over 400 motivational quotes, because I've always believed in the power of words. And one of the quotes in there that I felt really sums me up and sums up a lot of people that are successful in life. And he goes, all that's needed is ignorance and confidence, and with that, success is assured.
Oh, wow.
Because I was just ignorant enough to believe that the impossible was possible, but I was also confident enough to go for it. I mean, you're ignorant to not realize how nearly impossible this is to do. So you're ignorant of that fact, and you're just confident enough to go for it because of your ignorance.
That makes a lot of sense. I told my sons that when I was in writing school, they were always telling us how impossible it is to do this. And there is something about not knowing that you can't do it. Because like you said, that's great.
Well, and I recently hung out with, one of the, and I won't be able to name him, but in the top 5 richest men on planet Earth, and he's one of the mega billionaires of the world. And I recently got to work with this person and hang out, and he said something about the company that him and his partner started that changed the world. He said, if we had known, we were just ignorant enough to go for it, to do this, because if we had a little bit more intelligence, a little older, we would have realized that this is impossible, or we would have been overwhelmed with, but because they were just ignorant enough to do it, they started a company that became an empire. And
wow.
You realize it's very true of a lot of people. Like, get somebody like Berry Gordy, who started Motown Records. He didn't go to college to study, how to start a record company. He borrowed $500 from his sister and just started a record company.
I think we feel the same way here. I think for us here with this show, Joy in My House, we just kind of stepped out in faith. We really didn't know what to expect, how much everything was going to cost financially, or how to put this together. But slowly, we've just been developing it. And I completely agree with that. I don't think if I was smart enough, would I be doing this? I think God just kind of planted this in us, and we just started developing it.
And I can really see why God uses young people. I don't know exactly where it is in Scripture, but I was reading where the Lord was talking about after He had delivered the Israelites from bondage. And you're very astute in the Word, Zoro, so you probably know where it is. But He was saying that He didn't want to deal with anybody 21 years and older. And I thought, wow, that was pretty harsh. But I can see, because when you're young and you are fresh and you're just coming up in life, like you said, you're ignorant enough, you trust, you're willing to take risks. Are you familiar with that passage, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm with you, because it's faith, basically. And I have learned to retain this childlikeness that I had when I was little, and I have fought very hard against the forces of life, the forces of evil ones. I have fought very, very hard to maintain a very childlike spirit in everything that I do. I'm really still like a big kid. I'm enamored with dreams and visions, and I just believe when God gives me an idea and a dream of something, I just believe that it's possible, and I don't look at the circumstances. I don't look at writing my big gig book. If I looked at the circumstances, it would have never been written. It would have never been published if I looked at my life, my background. I had no training in writing. I never went to school. I have the worst grammar in the world. I don't even know how to form a sentence correctly with the semicolons, colons, but I know how to communicate. I have stories to tell. I know how to write out what I want to say. I figure other people can edit and clean it and make it, grammatically correct. So if I looked into the natural world, I would be so overwhelmed by things, I would have never gone for anything. But I always fight very hard to retain this childlike ability to just believe that all things are possible. And the Scripture says that all things are possible to him who believes.
And I think that in itself is so inspirational, even to me on a personal level. Yes, thank you, because that inspires me to go out there and knock on doors, even though a lot of times these doors are pretty big doors for me, and it's intimidating. But yet sometimes I'm just so naive that I think, hey, yeah, get Lolita in here. She needs to perform here. She needs to.
Because people said to me when Joel and I first started working together, without going through all that, he was a martial arts teacher for Seth. And I had my book and CD and nobody to help me. And so Joel, being a talker, we got together as two kids. People go, well, how are you going to have a martial artist go and talk to these big company people? But we were ignorant enough and kids enough to just go, well, hey, we needed the help. And we go, I'm so glad what you're saying today. You're helping a lot of people.
I think it's very inspirational. If you're out there listening and you want to make a comment or a question, please tweet us at twitter.com/joinmyhouse, or you can call the studio line directly at 323-247-7443 for any questions or comments you have for Zoro. Zoro, I did want to ask you, how did you get involved with Big Brothers of America? I saw that you've done quite a bit for them.
Well, that was a very natural relationship and engagement with them, because from the ages of 10 to 14, I was in the program Big Brothers Big Sisters as a kid. I was one of the kids that was mentored by a couple. Actually, it was a husband and wife team. So my mother, at the time, we moved up to Oregon from Los Angeles, and she was going through a lot of difficult times physically, and she had a lot of arthritis, and she had a lot of ailments at the time, and she couldn't do all the things with us that she wanted to do, nor did she have the resources. But she had enough sense and enough love for us to go, I got to find something for my kids, something to help them. So she found out about the Big Brother, Big Sister program, and she signed us up. And then a couple by the name of Bill and Beverly Large, they actually took on me as a little brother. They took on my other little brother, Robert, and they took on my little sister, Lisa.
Wow.
So it was a very unusual situation where one family actually mentored and took on three of us as what they call their littles. The mentors are bigs, and the kids that need to be mentored are called littles. So I was a little, and so was my brother and sister, and we had this incredible experience with this family for like 4 years. They would pick us up every weekend and take us on our first football game, our first fishing trip,
Wow,
our
that's
first pizza,
amazing.
our first Chinese food. I mean, this was in a very small town in Oregon called Grants Pass, Oregon. But we would have just been sitting out in the country on our little piece of property in our little trailer doing nothing but twiddling our thumbs had it not been for Bill and Beverly, because they were a couple that had some resources. They had obviously enough money to take us in to do these things. So we went on camping trips and boating trips, and we did all these things. And it was just, still to this day, my brother and sister, we always talk about those great memories. So because of that, and because somebody dared to love on, some of the underprivileged, which was me and my family, it gave me an interest in doing the same for other people.
Wow.
And so I approached Big Brothers Big Sisters many years ago to tell them of my story and who I am, and that I was in the program and what I've gone on to do with my life. From there, they had me speak at the national conference.
Oh, when did you do that? When did you do that?
That was about five years ago. And they had me speak. I was the keynote speaker at the national conference, and there wasn't a dry eye in the room when I was done. And I just encouraged people that, all those things matter. And I encourage people to give. I encourage people to get involved and be a big or do something with the organization. So as a result of that, they've had me do different. In fact, I'm going to do one for a 30-year anniversary of a Big Brother organization in Ohio, Columbus, Ohio.
When is that going to be?
That's going to be in April of next year. And so it's the 30th anniversary, and they have like a talent show for some of the littles. And,
well, good for you.
Anyway,
good for you
I've always
giving
had a
back.
heart for people.
Yeah, good for you giving back, especially to an organization that gave you so much. A lot of times people get big and right away they forget. Right away they move on. That was a chapter in my life, but good for you, Zoro, to be able to have a big enough heart to also give back to the Big Brothers of America.
But also what he did too here was you let people realize you don't know that God's working in your life, and you think that no big things have been done. But look, you've already told us of people that God used along the way to help shape and make what has happened in your life possible. So
well,
that
here's what I've learned from the journey, Lolita, is that, we're all born into whatever situation we're born into. Some of us are more fortunate, and we're born into a great family of solid mother and father, stay married forever, encouraging, have a decent amount of financial, stability. But that's not the norm. The norm is we're all born into something that's less than perfect, and there's challenges and there's struggles. It's just real life. It's real life on planet Earth. But I've learned this, that no matter what the circumstances we're born into, God has a way of utilizing all of it, even the negative things you've gone through. He has a way, if you allow him, to take you through the process, and you allow him to shape you. I've had many in my life as a child. I had a lot of rejection. My natural father, he left. He dumped the family, and he dumped me when I was an infant, before I was 6 months old. And he didn't die. He just ran away and never, became accountable. But I spent most of my life trying to reach out to him when most of my, childhood rather. I had contact with my grandmother, which was his mother, only by phone and only by mail. I had never met her, and I had contact with her, but she would never reveal where he is. So I grew up writing him letters, week after week, year after year, trying to, show him how good I was or how good I did at report cards and pictures. And all these got sent for, 18 years. And never once did he reply. And yet I knew that he got them because she would always say, I gave him your stuff. And so all that did for me was it sent a deeply rooted message into my heart that nothing I do is good enough for him to respond. And honestly, it would have been better for me as a kid if he had died or something, like in the war or something, because then I wouldn't have that constant rejected feeling. So for me, I grew up with an incredible amount of rejection, which I didn't even really understand at that age, but you internalize it and you therefore think that you're not good enough or that you're not worthy enough. So my situation is very common to lots of people. I'm not alone in people.
It is very common, but you've superseded that. You've really done the work that you needed. You've been a godly man, and look how far you've come now because of it.
That's right.
And that's my point, is that God will take, if you allow him, he will take all the negative things that happen in your life. And in my particular case, he spoke to my heart and many times, and even prophetically at times, where he said, I'm going to allow you to become for others what you had desired for yourself, which was that mentor. I always wanted that person to believe in me, that person to say something good about me. I always dreamed about, and God was faithful that even though I didn't have one particular person at different times in my life, whether it was through the Big Brother, Big Sister program or a school teacher or a woman like Bertha, God was faithful to send others along my path to water it. And so that's why I sort of always maintain this attitude of gratitude, that I'm always grateful for anything that anyone's ever done for me. And if you look in my book, the opening pages of The Big Gig, I have more acknowledgments there than I've seen in any book. And
it's sure funny, do.
The book was being reviewed by some Christian magazine, and the guy reviewed it said, he said in the review, he goes, I didn't get past the acknowledgments before I started weeping, because I could just feel the Spirit of the Lord in all of these pages, in this guy's heart and his gratitude towards the people. And he said, this thing was so anointed, and I never even got to the first page. And I felt
the same way. I felt the same way.
Yeah, I feel like the book is a labor of love. It really is.
It really is.
You remember I called you and told you it's just a big labor of love.
And like you said, because of you being so receptive, look at everything that God has done for you. Because I did want to go into your accolades and some of the things that you were on the Joyce Meyer show. Now, when you went on there, how was that experience? What was that like?
Going on the Joyce Meyer show was fantastic. It was just an awesome privilege, and she's a super anointed woman, and it's a fantastic show. And she's got her own incredible story of what she's overcome. I don't know. I just love people who don't live with a crutch in their life, and just allow God to use all of the destructive things that happen to them and allow God to turn it into something magical. And that thus is the story of like a Joyce Meyer and many countless other people. Just
you included.
Okay,
I think you included as well, Zoro. I think you included as well. I would have to say Joyce Myers. I'm gonna include you right in that category, Zoro.
Well, thank you, man. I always just look at myself as a servant, and I serve God in all the capacities all the giftings that He has given me. It's just about faithfulness to call. There's a call on everybody's life who's listening to this show. Every single person has a call, no matter how great, no matter how small. And in fact, there's a quote by Charles Schulz, the author of Peanuts, the inventor of the creator of the Peanuts character and Charlie Brown and all that. There's a quote in the book. It says, most of us are like 10-speed bikes. We have gears that we never use.
Right.
Wow, know, and also another thing in talking to you, and which I know Joel wants to cover. I think the interesting thing is that God gave you a platform. He put you in the heart of secular music. I mean, you were in the heart of show business, and I talked to you about this before when I had the pleasure of seeing you speak at a church out in the Valley. That you were able to. So I think it'd be good with Lenny and to talk about what that was like. The contrast.
You were hanging out with New Edition, Bobby Brown. I know Mike Tyson at the time, LL Cool J, and toured with Lenny. I mean, how was all that like? Especially
how did that shape you? What did you see in that?
Well, many things. I mean, I guess when I was real young, living in Beverly Hills and some of the first initial excitement of rock and roll and my career beginning to take off, you begin to see things, and then you begin to realize that a lot of the people that have all of the success still don't have any joy or still don't have any happiness. And so at
I
first, when you're
believe that.
young, you're pursuing all these things because you think, well, if I can just be rich and successful and famous. A lot of that stemmed from my feeling worthless growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so then you pursue things so that you can be accepted and loved by people. And but when I first pursued it, it all seemed cool. And then as you begin to see famous people or people that have money and all this, fame, and then you realize, gosh, these people are miserable. It kind of it brought me back to the Lord at a certain point, because I had accepted the Lord in my heart. When I was a young boy,
Mm-hmm.
I felt the presence of God way back to when I was at least 5 or 6, where I could just feel there was a God. By about, then we grew up in the Catholic Church, and you go to church, and I could still feel God's presence. And then when I was about maybe 10 or 12, I received the Lord like officially at an altar call. And
Wow.
and then I started doing Bible studies. And when I was about 17, I wanted to be a preacher. When I was 12, I wanted to be a preacher. When I was 17, I wanted to be a preacher. And so after like touring and seeing some things, I kind of realized, okay, this is the music part is fine. All that's great.
But what
All
goes
the rest
behind
of
it?
it, if you don't find that deeper thing, what's to say I wouldn't be like all these other people that have all the stuff but are still purposeless? And
Right.
so I
How'd you
had a
get with
very,
Lenny? How'd you get with Lenny?
Yeah. What was your relationship like with Lenny? How did you meet him? How did you guys start a relationship and then touring with them?
Mm-hmm.
well, Lenny Kravitz and I go way back to the same exact time where I met Osama Afifi, Lolita's brother, who's Lolita, the show on the co-host of your show. So I met them all in and around the same time. I actually met Lenny first
Mm-hmm.
on the lawn of Beverly Hills High School. So here's the dreamer part in me. 17, just maybe turned 18 years old. I'm new in Beverly Hills, trying to figure out, well, how does somebody go about making it? How do I go about meeting people? I didn't feel like I was college material. I had just barely graduated high school, so I didn't really know. I heard of UCLA, but I didn't know. I wasn't thinking, well, I'm just going to go to the UCLA campus and hang out because it was so big. So I thought, well, really, I'm really more like a high school level player. So why don't I just go down to the high school and just hang out? And so here was my plan. I basically, I had a ghetto blaster.
There you
A
go.
boom box, as they call it now. I had a big
Oh
old boom box.
my.
I had some drumsticks and a practice pad. I had a pimped out hat, a straw, Panama Jack hat with a yellow
Man,
sash
you
around
sure
it.
used to wear
A
those suits yellow?
yellow silk pants, and I looked like Big Bird, on
Wow.
acid. But anyway, so I thought, okay, I'm going to go down to the high school at lunchtime, and I'm going to crank my Earth, Wind, and Fire, and I'm just going to play on the practice pad. And I know that I'm going to attract attention to myself, and there's bound to be some other musicians here, and they're going to recognize that I'm new. Well, I did that. No sooner than I did that at the lunch hour, with like 10 minutes, a very young 16-year-old Lenny Kravitz comes up, and also Barry Gordy's son, whose name was Kennedy Gordy. He later became,
Wow.
well, had a couple of big hits in the early 80s. But anyway, they both had come up to me and are like, hey, man, you're new here? And I'm like, yeah, I'm new here. I just moved to town. So they befriended me, and then, they both had different bands that they wanted me to be in. And then basically every single day I would go back to the high school and hang out. And then I met Osama when Lenny paraded me around the school to show everybody his new friend, Zoro, the drummer.
Lenny's a bass
He used
player,
me to
right?
show off to everybody. Okay, play drums for them, man. Blow these guys away. Show them. And so I'd go in the band room and show them if I could play. And then those guys wanted me in a band. And it to all the people who worked at the school, it appeared as if I was just another student, because I would come every single day, and nobody ever asked me if I
That's
was
funny. But you were
registered
never
in school.
enrolled at. But you were never enrolled at the
I was
school.
never enrolled in the school. I graduated just a few months before.
That is a
Now,
great.
I didn't know
great
that part.
story.
I thought you went to Beverly.
No, I relived my senior year without having.
Sorry.
Now, what
I got
tour?
in there with everybody, and it was just I mean, it was really the Lord's hand on my life, but it really, when I look back on it, I go, who does that?
And
It
I
was
think
just
about and I think about
rich.
women, having no idea. I remember because you played for me, and we used to do some crazy gigs at the El Gato and
Yeah.
all these crazy places, and I used to yell at you, "Quit playing those drums so loud and fast," not knowing that I had this virtuoso behind me.
I
I d-
was out of control,
but
but
I
in a
did
good
want to
way.
ask you. I did want to ask you. So what tour did you tour with Lenny on? What album was that?
I did a lot of them. I
Oh,
did,
you did quite a few of them. Okay.
Let Love Rule. For a couple of years, I did Mama Said. I did Baptism. So off and on, I've toured and worked with Lenny, from 1989 to now, just off
Mhm.
and on. So we spent many years touring together, and Lenny's a great guy and a great friend. I can trace a lot of my uh, vocational success
Mhm.
to a few people. It would be
Right.
like Osama. It would be Lenny. It would be Kenny Gordy. It would be people that I met when I was like 18 years old, who basically, believed in me. And I wrote about that in the Big Gig.
Mhm.
And
I
that's what
talk
we're gonna
about
get
this
to.
the audition that Lenny hooked me up with the New Edition, and when they were popular, and I got the gig. But I talked about it, and there's a quote by Abraham Lincoln that kind of summed up the way I feel about people like Osama, Lenny, and Kenny, and just different friends of mine that believed in me. And the quote was this, that Abraham Lincoln said about his success. He said, "I had a friend who believed in me, and I didn't have the heart to let him down."
Oh
Wow,
wow.
that's great.
And
That
so
is
that's
great.
why he kept persevering until eventually, because he overcame many, many obstacles,
And
Abraham
Go
as
see
Lincoln.
the
and
movie.
so
Go see the
and as
movie.
you,
Yeah.
we're gonna take a quick commercial break, pay some bills. But ladies and gentlemen, this is Joy in My House. I'm here with my co-host Olita Robinson, and we have Zoro the drummer on the line. And we'll be right back, and we're gonna come back, and we're gonna talk about his amazing new book, The Big Gig.
I can't
Stay
wait. See
tuned,
you,
ladies
Z.
and
All
gentlemen.
right.
Can't sleep, my mind's been racing, 'cause my stocks have taken a dive. No doubt the landlord's waiting, can pay my rent again this month.
Hi, I'm Renina Minter.
And I'm Delana Watson, inviting you to join us every Sunday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time
For our show, Sisters Seeking Solutions.
Solutions,
Join us as we discuss real life issues,
hot topics,
reality TV,
and current events.
while providing entertaining and encouraging solutions.
So don't forget to tune in to Sisters Seeking Solutions,
More than a show, a movement. Every Sunday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, exclusively on latalklive.com.
You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream.tv and now on Radio Flag and every mobile device.
Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, I'm Ro Williams, and I would like to invite you to join GospelRhythms.com live every Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for our new show, Gospel Rhythms Talk Live. Join us as we celebrate, promote, and elevate Christians in entertainment. So don't forget to tune in to Gospel Rhythms Talk Live exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio under R&B or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is Gospel Rhythms on LA Talk Live, where we don't just talk about it, we are about it.
There comes a time to be free of the heart.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Joy in My House. My name is Joel Ramirez, and I'm the host of this show, and I'm joined here by my co-host Lolita Robinson.
Hello, everybody. I'm glad you're here.
We have a great guest on the studio line, Zoro the drummer, who was drumming for Lenny Kravitz's tour, toured with New Edition and Bobby Brown. Zoro, how are you doing today? Welcome back.
Doing great.
Now, we did want to just play a couple of, at least one of your songs that you've drummed in. it seems like you have a real passion for drumming besides the actual experience of performing. The drumming itself seems to be an outlet for you. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. It's just, I believe everybody has something that God pre-wired into their DNA that makes them feel alive when they're doing it. For some people, it's serving people. For some people, it's being creative. For
Hmm.
some people, it's being visionaries. For some people, it's being, helpful like a doctor. Everybody has something that God has given them that makes them come alive when they're doing it. And when you do it at the level that God wants you to, you feel at one with the purpose of why you're here. And so
And I
that's
think
how
that
I
and
feel
I
when
think
I'm
that
performing.
drumming for you has allowed you to write this amazing book. I did want to ask you about the book. I think this is so important for people to go out and get. This is The Big Gig. Zoro, tell us about the book, The Big Gig. How long did it take you to write it? Why did you write it?
Okay, the big gig was developed over a period of 15 years, is
15.
how long it was
Wow.
from the vision, when the vision started, to where it was finally a reality. And it's really all of my life experiences of, over 30 some years in
Oh,
the music
30. I know I have
industry and
30, yeah.
50 years on the planet. And it was all of my experiences to teach people how to succeed in three areas of their life. Because God gave me a picture of people's lives, and there's three, from God's perspective, there's three areas of achievement that we're designed to experience. One of them is the one that most people know about, which is vocational,
Hmm.
meaning your career, your gift, your skill, your craft.
Hmm.
That's one aspect of success. But unfortunately, most of the world stops there. The other two that are equally as important is personal success, which is all involved in your personal relationships. And then the third component of success is spiritual success, which is having a relationship with the living God through Jesus Christ and having purpose in your life because of that relationship. And that's irregardless of where you're at in life financially, where you're at in your career, even where you're at personally in personal relationships. The spiritual component is missing in most people's lives. So I believe that human beings will never feel satisfied unless they're thriving, at least to some degree, in all three of those areas. They have to
Absolutely.
thrive
I
in
would
their
agree.
personal relationships in order to feel complete. We have Hollywood filled with people that are vocationally successful, but their personal lives are a wreck. And then you see that they go crazy, or they, go into institutions, or
Or
they
die.
commit suicide or whatever, because you can't just have a career success and not personal success is really just thriving in relational situations, thriving in your marriage, thriving in your as a parent, thriving as a brother, thriving as a friend. Just having healthy relationships with people is a huge part of life. And then, but without being connected to God, then people never connect to their purpose, and they never connect to the why we're here and what am I supposed to be doing while
I
I'm here. Because
definitely
I
believe
believe
that.
God's created each person with this genius potential. And I'll give you an analogy that might help people that are listening to understand what's been deposited in them. But the day you were born, God deposited, let's say, $1 million worth of potential in your bank account.
Hmm.
You have got an account, and in that account is $1 million worth of potential. But if you never know that you have the account, if you don't have the checkbook or the passbook, or you don't have the will and testament that says you've
Right.
inherited $1 million, then you don't even know you have it. The other thing is, and I believe that, so God gifts you with $1 million worth of potential, but now you have to take withdrawals out of the account. If you never take any withdrawals out of the account, you can die and get to the end of your life, and when you meet God, He's going to say, "What did you do with the $1 million of potential?" And you're going to say, "Oh, well, I only withdrew $10 because I didn't have courage, or I was lazy, or I was apathetic, or I didn't
Hmm.
realize it had a purpose, or I didn't realize you wanted me to." And to me, the biggest shame in life is to not withdraw as much as possible from that account that's already there, because He's created us in His image. God is limitless, and God is the ultimate creator. We're all creative, not just people in the creative arts.
I
Everything
believe that.
about life is creative.
I believe that, and I agree. That's very insightful. If you're out there listening, you really need to tune in. You really need to make a comment if you have any questions or comments here. Zoro, next time you're in town, you're going to need to come and visit us at the studio. We need to have you in studio next time you're here in LA. But I did want to ask you, where can you purchase the book, The Big Gig?
And I also wanted to say something before he talks about, when I read the book, I got the impression that people are waiting for the big gig. But what I got the impression in the book was that everything that we do is working towards the big gig.
Yes.
And that's the thing that it really helped me, because it made me, I think a lot of people, I was talking to a musician last week, really well-known saxophone player. He's done amazing things in the business, and he told me, I haven't made it. And I said, well, what more can you do? I mean, you've had all these accolades, yeah, but I haven't got the real big gig.
Yeah.
And that's what reading your book helped me to. Can you elaborate on that just a little bit for people?
Well, in life, so many people are looking, we all can relate to the term gig, whether you're a musician or not.
Right.
If somebody goes, oh man, I got a new gig, a new day gig, or I got a new, acting gig or whatever. The gig represents, your work, and the big gig is like that big giant thing that, you finally hit. But you know what? We're not all created to, be, Denzel Washington,
Right.
or, Mick Jagger or Paul McCartney. There's not going to be 10 million of those. So, but that doesn't mean that we should negate the effectiveness and the power of
Right.
our life.
That's right.
To me,
Right.
big gig is the sum total of your whole life, and how you treat and deal with every little gig in life. Meaning, what if you're a pastor and you've got a church of 20 people?
That's right.
You less significant at the end of your life when you meet the Lord than Billy Graham, Billy Graham was determined by God to shepherd millions. Maybe you were determined to shepherd 100, but it's more about faithfulness. Did you shepherd the 100 well? Did you influence the people in your circle? Did you cultivate your gifts as best you can? If you are doing all those things, you are living out the big gig, because your big gig is really your life itself, and how you treat. Like, I was thinking about it before I did the radio show, and I was thinking about, in my life, I've never treated. I've been on the 700 Club. I've been on the Billy Graham special. I've been on, I've been on Jay Leno. I've been on, Johnny Carson, Arsenio Hall. Every kind of major TV show. I've done all these different things, but I didn't treat your show any less.
No, and it's so beautiful.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Another show, and I thought about that, and I thought about how many people I know that once they reach a certain level, they can't be bothered with things that aren't on that that same level they reached at some point.
You're right.
And so they become kind of ignorant to like the purpose in their work. Where I look at everything, God has opened huge doors and He's opened small doors, but I go through all of them, and I'm the same person in each setting. I'm not any less respectful. I'm not any less. I don't show any less work ethic. I am just as reliable with something that I'm barely getting paid for as I am with something that I'm getting paid a lot of money for. If it's something that I decide to do, I give it my all, and I don't treat anything as any less important, because maybe you have out there listening, I have no idea. Maybe you have 100 people, maybe you have 1,000, maybe you have 100,000, maybe you have 1,000,000. It doesn't really matter, because whoever you have out there listening, if they're listening to what God's deposited in me that I'm trying to deposit in them, and more importantly, if they act on it, lives will be changed. Lives are changed in a mere sentence. I've had people, when I was 17 years old, before I met Lenny Kravitz, Kenny Gordy, and Osama Fifi, I was living up in Oregon. I sat in and jammed with, at the time was kind of a famous jazz fusion band, and the bass player came up to me and said, "Wow." He goes, "Man, you're going to be one of them superstar drummers." That's all he said. Now, to this day, I have no idea whether he was just trying to make me feel good or whether he actually believed it. All I know is when he said it, he was a respected bass player. I believed it. One sentence made me think that I could be great. So words, and there's a quote in my book from Rudyard Kipling, who was the author of The Jungle Book. He said, "Words are the most powerful drug known to mankind." Think about it. Everything that the world has ever achieved, bad and good, was done so through the power of words, by words that were written either in the Bible or propaganda from Adolf Hitler. It's all words that change people, that are responsible for the movements of the earth and the movements of civilizations, are all by words. And the same thing individually, like we're formed by the words
I believe that.
speak over us, or we speak over ourselves. So I don't treat this radio show any less important than anything else I've done, because words are going out and words are penetrating into the hearts of people.
And thank you for that.
And the words carry an anointing and a presence from
Thank
God
you.
that has the power to change people.
And I agree with that. I think even for us here coming on the show and having this show, we don't even know if we're reaching one person or a million people. I know that the show and the network itself reaches 4.5 million people, but for us, this is it's a ministry for us that even if we reach one person and they hear what God is really wanting to speak in their lives, we've
We're
done an
happy.
amazing
We're
job.
happy.
And I think
It's just,
we got to
yeah,
treat it that
you
way.
guys are
So where
doing
can
it.
we
It's-
get your
You
book?
guys are being faithful to
Thank
what
you
you
for that.
feel the Lord calling you to do. And the Bible says, he who is faithful with little, I will put him in charge over much.
Thank
And so
you,
most
Zoro.
people are just, they're not faithful to the little things. And that's what I want to encourage people to do, is wherever your job is, whatever you're doing, it may not be what you ultimately want to be doing, but if you're working, at Walmart, if you're working at McDonald's, but you aspire to be in higher positions and elevated, well, I'm here to tell you, I was a janitor in my own high school in Oregon. I was a groundskeeper. I did, clean toilets and scrub floors in front of schoolmates when the bell rang. But I told myself, I'm gonna clean these toilets like if life depended on it. I'm gonna do the best job that anyone's ever done. And guess what? God elevated me took me from the toilets to the top of the castle.
Yeah.
And
Well, where can we
it's-
get?
it's
Where
work
can everybody
ethic.
get your
It's-
book?
So we do want to talk about this because we're running out of time, Zoro. But because of that, you were able to write this book and inspire other people. So I hope that you go out and get the book. Where can we get the book, Zoro?
The book is called, first of all, it's called The Big Gig, and the subtitle is Big Picture Thinking for Success. It's available on Amazon.com. If people want personally autographed, signed copies from me, my website for the book is called thebiggigbook.com. It's also available at Barnes and Noble and the Guitar Center, and it's all over, but it's also on Apple as an iBook.
There you go.
iBook. So it's available everywhere. All you got to do is Google The Big Gig Book, but it's definitely Amazon and Apple and Barnes and Noble and Guitar Center and my own
That's
website,
perfect.
thebiggigbook.com.
Like I said, what an amazing ministry. The one thing I do ask of all my guests, and this is how we're going to end the show today, and one other question right after that
I'm gonna ask
is
about family
hopefully
now.
that this will tie in together. I ask this of all my guests. The premise of my show is joy in my house. Zoro, what does joy in my house mean to you?
Joy in my house to me means that throughout all of the difficult circumstances that are in life that are purely not joyful, that with the Lord living in your house, your tent, which is your own spirit, that you are capable of having joy throughout all of the trials and tribulations and throughout a very unstable world and unpredictable world, that God's joy is an eternal joy. It's a joy that's not reliant on circumstances being joyful in order for you to maintain that joy. I have had joy when I've had no jobs and no gigs, and I've had joy when I've had the best jobs and the best gigs. It's an eternal joy that can't be taken away by the circumstances of life. And God says, joy in my house. It's like, his house is heaven, and the joy is his children filling that house. And it's his joy to have us in the kingdom of God when we pass away. But more importantly, while we're here, it's his joy to live inside us. He came to dwell inside the heart of man. And that's where my joy comes from, is knowing that the joy in my house is knowing that the Lord loves me.
Wow. And Zoro, before you
The
go,
Lord loves you. There's your joy. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone else anymore. You don't have to win the approval of men. You just have to know I am loved by God. And if I'm loved by God, I've got joy. And money has nothing to do with it. Fame has nothing to do with it. Good looks has nothing to do with it. The Lord's joy he's the eternal Father who loves us all no matter what.
Well, I wanted to, before you go, I wanted to specify that you're a wonderful father and a husband, and you're a family man, and we didn't get to elaborate on that too long, but Osama was talking about the importance of your husband and your father, and you have children, and you are well-rounded, and I wanted to bring that in too, that being a musician, you have been able to have a family, and I didn't want to leave without letting people know that. That's the most important thing in your life. I know that.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just tuning in to the end of the show, this is Joy in My House, and we're joined here by a very special guest in line, Zoro the drummer. He just got an opportunity. Thank you, Zoro, for joining us. You just had an opportunity. I'm showing you the book right now, ladies and gentlemen. Go out and get it for the audience and viewers. You can buy it on iTunes as an ebook. You can go on Barnes & Noble. It's called The Big Gig. You can go to Amazon.com or you can go to thebiggig.com. Please follow Zoro on his Facebook page at Facebook.com/Zoro the Drummer and follow him. I mean, this guy has an amazing story. If you're just tuning in, catch the recap of it on latalklive.com or you can visit us on Facebook.com/Join My House. Zoro, thank you so much for joining us today. I can't wait for you to come into the studio next time you're in LA. You're going to have to come and visit us. This is Join My House, ladies and gentlemen. Lolita
Bye,
Robinson.
Zoro. Love you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for coming on the show. You guys have a blessed and great day.
Thank you, guys.
Excuse me, Father, may I come in? I'm feeling alone, afraid. I need a friend. Sometimes a mother